The most important part of a good parent-teacher conference is building that relationship, is showing that teacher, hey, I'm here and I want to collaborate with you.
That's Understood.org expert Dr. Andy Kahn. He's a licensed psychologist with over 20 years of experience. He's here to help us best prepare for parent-teacher conferences. By the end of this episode, you'll learn how to make the most of those 15 minutes.
When you get to the end of that conference and you go, wow, time just got away from us, having your list prioritized and prepared before you go into the room is goal one.
We'll also hear about an exciting new and free resource Understood has developed, Through My Eyes. It's an interactive simulation from Understood that helps you see school from a child's point of view. Welcome to The Opportunity Gap, a show where we talk about how to navigate the education system. I'm your host, Julian, an assistant principal with over 20 years of experience. Dr. Andy Kahn is in the building, everybody. Andy, I'm so happy you're back.
Thank you, Julian. It's so good to be here.
So a lot of us walk into conferences hoping for some praise, bracing for criticism, or walking out with next steps. But what should we really be walking in with? What are some concrete goals a parent or parenting adult should have going into the meeting?
It's a little hard to be concrete because there's so much emotion that comes into this for parents.
Right.
You're coming into this setting for the first time, and assuming you don't know this teacher. And there can be a lot of emotion tied up in this. I would say the most important thing to do to get concrete is to have a plan in advance. I think the one thing that people don't often think about is that the most important part of a good parent-teacher conference is building that relationship, is showing that teacher, hey, I'm here, I'm paying attention, I'm available, and I want to collaborate with you. And if you can make the outcome of that meeting that goal specifically, everything that comes afterwards is going to be gold.
I love that you highlighted the idea of building a relationship. Relationships take work. They're not something that happens overnight. And usually the parent-teacher conference is one of the first touch points you have with the family and with the teacher.
And I think one thing, Julian, that also can be helpful, if you're a little bit nervous about how it's going to go, it's always okay to send an initial email saying, hey, can we set an agenda? Can we talk about what we're going to talk about in advance so that you come in with expectations that are more reality-based?
So let's say a teacher doesn't seem to really see your child. How can a parent respond constructively if you feel like they're not really seeing who that child is?
Yeah, I think, some of the best ways to sort of surface that issue, because it can be really sensitive. The first thing I'll often share with a teacher, particularly when I'm concerned about what I'm seeing or not seeing, is expressing curiosity. I can say, I'm really curious. My child has expressed to me that when they're in class, for example, they're not feeling like they're getting called on, or there's something that they need and they're finding it's hard to get what they're after. Can you talk to me a little bit about like how that feels for you in the classroom? What are you noticing about it? And then from there, giving them some cues on really how to best see your child.
Right.
For some parents, saying something as simple as, when my kid's confused, they may be more likely to take bathroom breaks, or they might get fidgety, or my child might start having a conversation with a neighbor. The kind of things that may not really be easily noticed when someone doesn't really have a great sense for your child. So I think in those situations, surfacing that in a curious way and saying, I want to know how I can help you really better see what's going on with my child. And what might my child do that'll help get your attention in a way if they need something? Are there certain strategies that you prefer? I think for some teachers, the standard is, well, they could raise their hand. Well, I was an anxious kid, so that was not part of my big repertoire. I had a little thing that I would use in a lot of my classrooms where I had a little help card, and I would give it to my anxious kids and they'd put it on the corner of their desk and nobody else could see it, and in certain situations, if we were seeing that, teacher was struggling to see them or the kid was feeling singled out, we created a boatload of them, gave them to everybody. And the kids who raised their hands still raised their hands. But the ones who were a little bit more nervous would move those cards around. A little touch of that UDL side of, what helps certain kids with differences probably is going to help everybody.
Exactly.
So I think those kind of things can be really helpful to give the teacher sort of the gateway to see your child, but also ask about what they like for their techniques. The teacher's the artist in that room sometimes, and you want to say, well, what is it that you're going to bring that maybe I can teach my child about? And then vice versa. Think that creates a really nice opportunity to talk about, again, collaborative problem solving.
From your perspective, somebody who's been in schools, somebody who's worked with children, somebody who's worked with children of all types of cultures and races. If I'm a family and I feel like my child might be experiencing microaggressions, or they might be the victim of biases that are coming from the teacher to my child, what would you recommend in terms of the parent bringing that up in a respectful way,
Mhm.
but also in a firm way? So I know it's a loaded question, but I'm wondering,
Yeah, it
like,
is.
what would you
No,
recommend? Like, I'm experiencing microaggressions. I might not share the same cultural background as my teacher, and I'm at the parent teacher conference with this teacher. I already have my own feelings about it, but I want to bring this up. I want to be respectful, but I also want to be firm. What do I do?
obviously, this is a very challenging situation. And I think that the first thing you need to do in those situations, within reason, is to get as good a clear information from your child about what they're experiencing, trying to gather specific situations and instances. And if you can, multiple. Listen, we're all hoping that this isn't happening as a habitual negative thing in your child's learning experience. And I
Mm-hmm.
think one of the keys to having success, both cross culturally and within academic settings where differences aren't always captured well, is to try to present as best as you can the position of assumed positive intent that's going
Mm-hmm.
on between household and teacher. That being said, there's a theme that I'm gonna use here, Julian, which is sharing with the teacher. Say, you know what, my child raised to me a concern, and I want to just share a little bit about this with you because, again, I'm use the word. I'm curious. Okay,
I'm curious.
Curiosity is the key word here because curiosity implies that there's a lack of understanding between parties that we would like to reconcile. What too often happens in conversing around these topics, we bring up something, my child came home upset, and we start going into Papa Bear, Mama Bear moments. It's very hard to stay factual and curious in those situations if we're allowing ourselves to have a lot of response to that emotionally. So first and foremost, get the situation out. Say, I'm really curious. My child has expressed this to me, and similar things on a few occasions. What's your take on this? What are you seeing in those situations? Because you'd like to get the perspective of the other person in the room.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in that situation, again, I approach this in a fairly general fashion, which is, I'd like to help you and my child have interactions that are meaningful and respectful. And I think sometimes we might not be aware of what it takes to be successful with one another.
We're making it clear that there are certain expectations that everybody should be adhering to. And so I love that you're talking about making that clarity for our families, that it's okay to address things that you notice, and it's okay to unpack your own biases. Right?
Absolutely.
I know as a black male teacher myself and a black former student, I've had a number of my own experiences with teachers that don't share my own culture.
Mm.
And as a student, I bring that with me, my residual experiences that I have when I interact with other people. And so many of my families that I deal with now, they have that experience that they had themselves that they're bringing to the table when they're meeting teachers of their children. And so I always encourage anybody, know yourself and know what are your own triggers? What are your own experiences? How are they going to inform how you're going to interact with somebody? But make it clear, like ultimately assume positive intent.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, what should families do if they feel there wasn't enough time to address the things they really wanted to discuss during the conference?
That's a great question. And I think we echoed this a little bit in the start. In terms of your preparation, having your list prioritized and prepared before you go into the room is goal one. And that allows you to not lose track of at least the things you want to get answers to. And finally, when you get to the end of that conference and you go, wow, time just got away from us. And
Mm,
hopefully in a good way, hopefully you're connecting and that relationship building in the room is going to bear lots of fruit. So the
right.
thing that I will commonly say is, okay, I know we're at time, couple of quick things. What is my best way to maintain contact with you between our meetings? Okay,
Hmm.
do you prefer telephone, email, text, what have you? What platform do you prefer? Okay, I've got some questions that I haven't answered. Is it okay with you if I send these to you? And then you can, when you get a little time, give me some of that information at your own sort of pace.
Right.
getting permission for setting that frame, and also asking like what works best for them. Not all teachers are going to have the same way to come to get information. Some are going to love email because it's on their own time whenever they choose it. They can open it and close it. Phone calls require shared time and attention, and
Hmm.
that's become a much harder thing for people to do. But I think setting that frame is really important, and then setting the parameter. And as a parent, one of the things I learned to do from being on the other side of this is I would make sort of a verbal contract with my teacher. If you're giving me access to you via email, I promise you that I will try to keep my questions focused. I will try not to write a novel to you whenever I have a concern. And I will try to give you grace and time to reply.
Right.
And then I'll ask the sneaky question, is there a time of day that's best for you to receive emails that I'm likely to hear back from you quickly?
Mm.
When I was in schools, I had a cadence, right? I checked right before school, I checked at lunchtime, and I checked right before I shut down for the day. But I had my boundary was I'm not going to do this overnight. And when a parent gets home, sends that email off at 6:30 at night after work, and then they don't hear back first thing in the morning, knowing how a teacher, how they interact can do a lot of benefit to a parent to know, oh, wait a second, I know they're going to see this in the morning. I got
Right.
to take some breaths. I got to just let myself have expectations that are fair to someone who is maybe working with 25 kids, not just mine.
I would also add to that, make sure that you shower some praise on the teacher. It goes a long way.
Oh, yeah.
So for parents and parenting adults of children with learning disabilities, so often we find ourselves navigating a world where we're not even prepared for ourselves. If you didn't experience that on your own, it's hard to understand what they're experiencing. It's challenging to advocate for what you don't understand yourself. And that's where Through My Eyes comes into play. So, Andy, can you tell us a little bit about what Through My Eyes is?
Sure. Through My Eyes is at its core a free immersive digital experience on understood.org. And it's designed to provide sort of this look into a child's life who is experiencing living with a learning and thinking difference like ADHD, dyslexia, or dyscalculia. A lot of what makes this so magical to us is that it is taking the real stories and experiences of our kids and their families and using this platform to share this, to improve understanding, to give people who maybe don't have that same experience the opportunity to learn about what goes on with our kids, what's their day-to-day life like at school and at home, at daily activities. And the cool thing about it is there's a couple of ways the platform works. We have an array of digital gamified simulations. These are runner games like kids would play on their regular computer or on their handheld device, where kids are actually able to do some of the day-to-day activities with other kids who have ADHD or dyslexia or dyscalculia. They get to see the frustrations, get to see how this might play out for those individual kids. There's also some really awesome videos that families and kids have shared with us that describe what it's like to live with these differences. And the thing that I think is really great, and this comes from our work together, Julian, is that having experts who work together to create resources that can be shared with parents, teachers, and kids themselves, that gives them an opportunity to learn more about their differences so that as we have more understanding, I think what we've been saying is, once you start to see differently, you can start to act differently. And I think that's
Exactly.
the most powerful part about this.
I can't say enough about how much a joy it's been to be part of this experience. I just keep thinking about how enlightening it is for anybody that goes through it, especially even for myself. Somebody who's been in the education world for a long time, going through the simulations and really hearing from the kids themselves. What do you think parents are going to discover when they step into the Through My Eyes videos and simulations?
I think one of the pieces of this that is so crucial is that, on the surface, the idea that you're seeing videos and simulations about kids by kids, about their daily lives is one piece of this. But underneath the hood is the source of this huge collaboration. Through My Eyes was created with people like yourself, educational leaders, educators, psychologists, parents, and kids, to create a view that is not only realistic and reflective of what we see in the real world, but also reflects the ways that we can best communicate that information in a way that people are going to learn and understand from it. The key here with understanding how parents discover Through My Eyes is by creation of these videos. Now, why do we do this? 1 in 5 kids in our classrooms have a learning and thinking difference. But in spite of how many kids have these differences, the
Mhm.
challenge that we notice, particularly those of us who've worked in schools or have kids with differences, is that most of the differences these kids have aren't easily visible to other people. So I'll give you an example. You've got a kid who has, dyslexia, and they're struggling to decode words on a page. Now, what is it that you're going to see from these kids? That's not something that you're going to see with your eyes just looking at them in their chair. You might see a kid who's wiggling around, getting out of their chair and visiting neighbors, or getting agitated and deciding they can't stay in the room and they're leaving. Those are the external visible things we see. The
Right.
under the hood stuff that we don't is part of what we really focus on showing people through my eyes, as the videos and simulations really talk about kids narrating their own lives and
Mhm.
showing how they spend their energy. Parents are going to be more effective and feel more ability to manage what's going on with their kids, because as they develop the empathy and understanding of their kids, they can start to consider their behavior differently. And I think, as someone who's sat in a classroom for many years and someone who's worked with kids, supporting someone requires having the right approach. So if you're seeing a behavior in a classroom that looks like naughtiness or defiance, you're gonna approach that child with a mindset that says, "I've got to correct this. I've got to punish this or do something negative." When in actuality, through my eyes will show you that for a lot of these kids, they're not knowing what to do. They don't know how
Mm.
to approach and attack something that feels beyond their capacity at that moment. And this is about connecting information, empathy, and having plans and approaches for kids that can help them not only navigate their day-to-day lives, but to learn to thrive. And I think that so much of this, as you emphasized, kids telling their own stories,
Right.
sharing their own experiences, both the really joyous moments and the really challenging, terrible moments.
We just talked a lot about parent teacher conferences, right? And the preparation that goes into being a strong participant in these conferences. I'm wondering, after experiencing through my eyes as a simulation, and now, ideally you come away with a deeper understanding of the challenges that the child is experiencing. Does that impact the tone of the parent teacher conference? Have you seen any differences in people who have experienced this programming?
You know, I- it's really early, Julian. I mean, we
Yeah.
really just brought this out to the real world. But what I can say to you is that we absolutely are seeing, through our initial sharing of this with families and kids, that their understanding of their experiences is significantly different. We're seeing that parents are looking at their kids and going, "Wow, I wasn't entirely sure that what I was seeing was accurate. And now I know that my kid is going through something that I really have to approach differently."
Mhm.
One of the things that is particularly helpful is that, when a teacher is first meeting a child, they may have seen the 504 or the IEP that precedes the child into that room. And I think plans are great for helping us know what the accommodations and modifications and alterations to a child's program are going to look like. But it doesn't really tell you who the child is.
Right.
And I think Through My Eyes is about giving you a lens on who this child is, how they present, and what things that you need to be curious about to help your child be successful. Your child being your student, or your child being the parent, and bringing that to the parent teacher conference. The cool thing about it is, this is it. This is a free thing. We're not going to ask you for your email address. We're not going to ask you to log in and create an account. This is something that if you go to u.org/through my eyes, you're there and you can get access to everything that's been created. So I think it's really powerful for parents and teachers to have access and not feel that they're being told how to access and navigate the resources that are there for them.
It's funny you say that, because my next question was going to be, can teachers use through my eyes?
Yeah, so teachers can access, and everyone can access, Through My Eyes at u.org/through my eyes. One of the really cool things as we were developing this last phase of Through My Eyes was that I had the opportunity to present Through My Eyes as a classroom lesson for 10 kids who are middle school aged kids. So I got to give them a classroom lesson on learning about learning and thinking differences, getting to walk them through the simulations and some of the videos. And the experience for me was just astounding. Being in the room with kids, seeing their reactions, their responses. And, Julian, we've spent so much time working on this sort of in theory, right? Putting together the bits and pieces. But when the rubber meets the road, the reactions were really natural. The kids were
Mm.
really responsive. and they were blown away by what they were seeing. And I think that the really cool thing is that we were really conscious of this. So when I had, great educational leaders like yourself and some of the teachers on our expert team, we also made sure that we were developing 9 downloadable resources directly for educators that can
Right.
be used for things like lesson plans or professional development plans. Through My Eyes is something that we just really hope that is going to give people information and support in a way that they're really just going to benefit and that their kids are really going to see benefit out of this.
One last time, can you share exactly where our listeners and viewers can access Through My Eyes?
Absolutely. Go to u.org/through my eyes.
Okay, listeners, you heard it first. Dr. Andy Kahn in the building, u.org/through my eyes. Check it out. Thank you so much, OG family. We'll see y'all when we see ya.